And we're back.
That was seconds. That was literal seconds.
Pretty good, right?
Wow. Very accurate.
That's why they pay me the big bucks.
Right.
Welcome. We are now on Twitter, MMAFighting.twitter.com. This is what we call After the Beat, where we take your questions and your, again, comments and everything else, and we whimsically address them. Now, my vision is fading like it's a contest, so I need help from the literally older gentleman to help me read these. But you can send tweets to us all the time using the hashtag #TheMMABeat. So let's get those going now. Who do we have up first? Wizard of Oz? All right, I think I can read this one. This comes from some donk. UFC Rankings. How much stock do you put into the UFC.com rankings? Can you guys think of a better way for the UFC to rank the fighters away from the aggregated journalist rankings it currently uses? Shouldn't the UFC just use their own matchmakers rankings? Let me say something about this, if I may. Everyone's like, rankings don't matter. Rankings are dumb. Okay, rankings are dumb. They matter. Mm-hmm. We don't have enough of a conversation about how much bad rankings has an influence over how the sport is not merely covered, but how it drives the sport. It has in my judgment, Chuck, an outsized influence.
100%. I would say that I only really look at the rankings, the way the UFC rankings, just to remember everybody in that line. Because it's like if you're trying to like figure something out, you like might look at those 15 people like, oh, wait a second, why aren't these two guys, or whatever it is. It's more like a gauge in that sense. But the way that they use them, obviously, is a little bit different. This is we get into the Ali Act and some of the reasons that these things are weird.
Yeah, there's literally pending congressional legislation attempting to make rankings, to consecrate.
Exactly. So there's a lot weird about it, from the media, the types of media that's voting on it and on down the line. But I would say just for my own purposes, and I think that the only way to really do it would, again, to have that, a bunch of journalists, basically, if we're going to, like they did back in the day, where you just have a lot of journalists from each publication forming a rankings. I feel like that's the only way that you could have one that's basically third party, coming from journalists and things like that. But I'm kind of with you. Well, I don't know what the merit, and sometimes these things really matter, but I would say that they just give you a basis, I guess, of who's in the division and what they've been doing.
Yeah, as a journalist, if you're writing an article, you kind of have to put in the rankings just because that's the official ranking. So number whatever is fighting number whatever. But at the end of the day, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get a title shot or whatever the case may be. So yeah, whenever you look at the rankings, it's kind of funny, but it does give you a good perspective because I would say, although they might not be 100% accurate, at least if you just look at the top 15, you know for the most part at least that those are the top 15 fighters of the division. There's some exceptions here and there. When you get more detail, like okay, top 5, then the conversation starts getting a little hazy there. But overall, I feel like the top 15 is usually accurate on who's the top 15.
When the UFC first instituted rankings, I was invited to participate along with a lot of other journalists, and I did so in the beginning.
I was not.
I believe that, well, sorry, but there were about 60 people who were in there, and a lot of people, at least not every single journalist that I know was in it, but at least just about every outlet had some people. I know the SB Nation had some people, MMA Junkie had some people, ESPN. A lot of the major outlets that were covering the sport had people involved. But then the UFC did a couple of little things. One particularly, they took Nate Diaz out of the rankings because he was in a contract negotiation, and that was, it was kind of like, well, okay, now you're messing with the rankings. And I dropped out for another reason. When I was ranking, I was working for Sports Illustrated at the time, and I was doing my own rankings. There were top 10s, and that was what the UFC was. But then the UFC went to the top 15, and I suddenly realized, well, I'm not being paid to do these rankings. And I'm going to have to now create a ranking of 15 instead of 10, and it was too much of a conflict because sometimes, my SI rankings were including Bellator and other fighters as well, so it became too much work in a sense, and so I dropped out of it, and a lot of other people did too. Now I look at those rankings occasionally, and I look at the list of people who are involved, and I recognize maybe one or two of the maybe 20 people who are doing it. Most of the people, I don't know who they are. And so I don't care, I don't give much credence to the rankings, but I will say this, when I do look at the actual rankings, they don't usually seem too far out of whack of You know, in comparison to the SB Nation rankings or the MMA Junkie or ESPN rankings. Yeah. So, you know, I mean, I don't have a big quarrel with it, but I think the way to do it right would be to have a panel of journalists.
Not just UFC, but anybody within those weight classes. That's the way ESPN used to do it back in the day.
Yeah, when I was at SI, toward the end of my stay there, I tried to convince them to create something that, like Yahoo used to have, where we collected journalists from all the different media outlets.
Used to do it too, the consensus MMA rankings.
And we couldn't get it off the ground. But I think that's the way you got to do it.
I would agree. I just feel like it's better if an independent agency has them and not the UFC because, look, I don't want to take leverage away from the fighters, but the fighters don't have much leverage. Pointed to that list and saying, I'm number 3, gives them some, and it gives them some to take away any kind of risk. So that's a bit of a problem for me. Let's keep the train rolling if we can, please. What's next? Your dream pay-per-view card. Pick 5 fights of current male-female fighters if you were a matchmaker. Greets from Vienna. Could be Vienna, Virginia. I don't know. There's no way. People always do this like, what are your top 1,000 favorite fighters? I'm not going to list you 1,000 favorite fighters. How about this? Just pick one dream fight. We have 4 of us. We can make a 4-fight main card. Danny, you can go first if you got one.
Sure. Does it have to be like right now or
no,
can I?
Anything.
Okay, I would have made a few years ago GSP, Anderson Silva.
I love the choice.
The champions. That to me was the biggest super fight like booking that was available but never got done.
Yeah.
And back in the day when when Fedor was who he was and Brock Lesnar was at the top, I really wanted to see that.
No, I agree.
I mean, that's just one of those ones. I don't know. You just think about it and you're like, it was just from 2 different. One guy is like this very religious man. This other guy's this big red blowhard, crazy dude. So it's like, to me, you put those guys together and it would have been a big deal.
Wow. Well, so if we're going into going back a little ways, I'm going to say I will go with Cyborg against Rousey before her trainer told her that she knows how to box. Back when Rousey was not even thinking about boxing, but was just getting her opponent onto the ground and then destroying them. So back in the day, the sort of early UFC Rousey against Prime Cyborg.
Yeah.
Surprising choice for me, you might say, but I think it stands the test of time.
CM Punk.
Yeah, right. What? I wouldn't want to see that.
Michael Jackson.
What are you missing? You're just saying words. I would go with, believe it or not, and I'm talking about uninjured Cain Velasquez, so all that stuff that just absolutely crippled him nearly, versus John Jones.
Yeah.
I just feel like, look, maybe he won't answer my questions ever again, but I don't care. I think if you just look at talent for what it is and what that could have been, that is just one of those ones you're just like, ugh.
Well, guess what? Cain's not going to answer your questions next time either.
Well, he doesn't answer questions much anyway. Cain, how you doing? Good.
Every single one of our fights included at least one fighter who has been tainted by failed drug tests.
Yeah, good. It doesn't bother me at all. All right, what's next? On TJ versus DJ, when did we start rooting for a reigning or never lost the belt champ to go down in weight to seek a second belt? DJ should be chasing TJ if he wants, and TJ should be chasing Max H. Holloway if he wants to prove something. This just seems like bullying. I cannot disagree with this.
I agree.
More. I know
you're disagreeing.
Yes, we agree. There's this weird. Sometimes people just give arguments in combat sports, and you're supposed to accept it because of historical tradition.
Context in this one.
I don't get it at all. Are you really going to tell me that a 125 TJ, that is the best TJ? No, it's a diminished one. Right. Now, how diminished? I don't know. But it won't be a diminished DJ. And that's why the matchup works. It's not your big brother taking his shirt off to make a weight on a scale.
Not to mention, one guy has history in his back pocket. He's already just broke the record. That you come to him. Like, you're near the historic context like that, you come to that guy.
He's the one they orbit around.
That's what I'm saying. That's why both guys, Garbrandt and Dillashaw, were like, hey, what if I win this, I'd like to then go down. I mean, it's just obvious. You know what I mean? Like, in this particular case, I know traditionally, like you're saying, it may be the other way because guys want to challenge themselves in that way. But the challenge really is this time going down because we've seen DJ. We've seen him at 135. You were at that show in D.C., right? And like that was his last fight there?
I believe so.
And that was his last loss. So in some ways you're like, well, we know that there's a followable man at 135. He has not been that way at 125, so that's where it's at.
This question came from a Twitter handle, I think it was called Jorge's Brain. Jorge's brain is way bigger than either of your brains because Jorge is onto something.
What?
It does.
Skip
when you get if Dillashaw comes down to 125 to fight against the champion there. where's the future there? And do I want to see a diminished fighter? I don't want to see a diminished fighter.
Yeah, but Jose, you called it, you said his brain was bigger. All right, defend the ideas. He called it bullying. That seems comically wrong.
I mean, okay, that part of it, the brain was not quite working, but but the overall side of it is, I do believe that the smaller guy should be, DJ's next challenge should be to say, okay, now I'm going to go up and take on the champ of the next weight class. Look, we're not talking about some dominant guy up there. We're talking about a guy who had the belt very briefly, lost it without a successful title, one successful title defense, and then regained it after being dropped in the first round of his last fight. So, I mean, we're not talking about a guy who's going out there and mauling everybody at 135. We're talking about TJ Dillashaw. I want to see the champion at 135 be challenged by the champion at 125. I want to see that. I don't want to see a diminished Dillashaw come down, because there's all kinds of excuses then. Oh, well, it was a tough weight loss.
I would say I'm a little bit split on both. I wouldn't mind either or scenario. Like, I think obviously DJ is the A side here. He is the one that made history. He is the champ. That's
his belt means more
exactly than Dillashaw. So you come to him.
Everything,
yeah,
right?
You come to him for sure. It's his terms, his weight class. They should make it in his hometown if that's even possible. But I also wouldn't mind the idea of DJ going, okay, well, I am the pound for pound. Let me go up a weight class and prove that I am the pound for pound, and I can beat other champions at their own weight class. I wouldn't hate that either.
Yeah.
And holding two belts.
I just feel like you've got guys. Look, we've seen DJ sleep Joseph Benavidez, but generally speaking, I don't think it's a crime to say that flyweights probably don't hit as hard, even as bantamweights. Certainly not featherweights or lightweights, right? They just don't hit as hard. Middleweights. Do they not hit as hard as heavyweights? Probably not as hard, but plenty hard, right? So moving up when you're like that, to me, seems way more doable. And I just also feel like, you've got a guy 10 pounds away from you who has the all-time title defense record. You'd be a fool to not try and fight that guy, assuming you can do it without too much of a depletion. And if that depletion is only relatively mild, that makes, to me anyway, makes the fight intriguing. But I guess we'll see. What else do we have?
John Dodson knocking out Dillashaw.
Yeah. True or false? Fedor makes it to the Bellator Heavyweight Grand Prix Finals. Danny?
He starts with Frank Mir. Do you know who's after? Who did he take the winner of?
It almost doesn't.
I think
does
it's
it really matter after that?
In the Western bracket, that's a tough bracket.
I think he's in with the Son and Rampage side of the
I would
draw.
say no. I think Fedor's been long past his prime. And but they were like, some people say, oh, but before the Matt Mitrione, he was a bit on a win streak. But who was he fighting over at Reason? I mean, they were giving him.
By the way, the question, just to clarify, just make it to the final.
To the final?
Doesn't
No.
have to win the tournament.
No, I don't think so.
No way he gets past Rory McDonald.
I believe that he wouldn't get. Have you seen Rory these days?
I would say no, false.
Okay, false. Chuck?
I don't think so either, man. I mean, it's weird though, because with
one's got faith.
Frank Mir, like you have no clue at this point what she's going to get in Frank Mir. I don't know what to expect from Frank Mir, but at the same time, I do kind of know what to expect from Fedor. I was sitting there cage side when he fought Mitrione, and there's just a point where you're like, oh God, how many more times do you want to see this? And I feel like he's being thrown into this crazy situation, and I believe that happens to him again before he'd get that far.
Jeff, you see
false. It's I think that he has not shown anything in his last, I don't know how many fights, that would lead me to believe that he's gonna survive to the end of a fight. I mean, really, I feel like he was a great fighter in his day, but it seems as though that day has passed, and I don't think that he's going to make it.
Just for fun, I'm gonna say true.
All right.
I hope you're right. That'd be great.
I mean, I really have no faith whatsoever, but I do think it'd be really fun if he somehow beat Mir, and I don't know, let's say he fought Rampage and somehow won that, and then you got Fedor who just beats Frank Mir and Rampage, and he's in the finals of a tournament. Everyone would be high-fiving and donkey kicking in the air. It'd be a great day in the MMA community. It really would. It'd be nice to see, actually. But you're probably right.
Imagine if he won the tournament and retired.
Oh, if he wins a tournament and retires, you're gonna be like, that would be an incredible way to clean up the end of his career, for sure.
I will say, man, that tournament was pretty fun. Like I thought at
hate
first,
on the tournament.
I know. I think it's fun, man. I think it's just cool. It's like you put all these guys together.
I remember when Scott Coker made the Strikeforce Heavyweight Grand Prix. Remember they were on top of the Empire State Building?
Yeah.
And all those guys were up there taking pictures. And I remember people being like, man, I don't know if this idea is going to work. And look, part of it did fall through. They just can't control some of this stuff. But don't you want to be in a sport where guys are out there trying? I want I want you to try something that if you fail, it does blow up in your face, but it has to have that kind of risk to make me care. And he did that. And it launched Daniel Cormier.
Yep, absolutely.
Very good. What else we got? Oh, here we go. What's your go-to karaoke song? You know, Jeff, that I'm going to you first.
The only time I've ever done karaoke was my wife had a birthday party that she decided she wanted to make a karaoke party, and she said I had to go up and sing with her. So we did. We got up there and did Sonny and Cher. I got you.
Did
there.
you really?
Yeah.
That's not a bad one, Sonny and Cher. I like that. All right, Danny.
I would go
I can reprise
with-
it right
You guys probably don't know. Maybe you do, with a Spanish classic from Basilos, Cara Luna.
I don't know it.
That never fails. That at parties.
We were going to do
always-
that. We were between that and Sonny and Cher. We went with the Sonny.
I know it's Mexican, but you wouldn't do El Rey?
No, probably not.
No? All right. Fair enough. Chuck?
The one I probably went to the most, and it's been a while, but I used to do the Alabama song by the Doors. You know, the "Show Me the Next Whiskey Bar." You know,
I
that-
don't.
How does it go again?
I think the
Show
Doors.
Me-
I think the Doors are super overrated. Hot take.
I somehow would have expected that of you, but
Yeah.
it's just it's kind of a bar song, so it's just like people sing along to it. So I always knew it'd get people going.
I don't have a favorite song because I don't do karaoke sober, which means I don't remember much of it.
That's me too.
It's like doing karaoke sober is like doing surgery without anesthesia. It's like, what on earth could
Yeah,
possibly
there
be the
definitely
point?
needs to be some drinks involved. I'm sure yours was something to do with Drake, maybe one time.
No, but here's a funny story. This is true once. I had two fraternity brothers, two idiots. And what they would do is they would go to the most packed karaoke bar in D.C., and this is a true story. They told me they were going to do this, and I didn't believe them, and I went with them to escort them. So they get on stage, and they pick a song, like Spice Girls or something, right? And what they do is, you know that song, I forget who sings it, but it's like, we built this city.
Yeah.
We built this city on rock and roll.
It's Jefferson Airplane. Or
Jefferson Airplane. So what they would do is, it didn't matter what the song was, they would just keep saying, we built this city, over and over and over again, waiting, and they would not give up the microphone until the manager came and snatched it. The rule was you can't stop saying it until they snatch the microphone from your hands. And I would be sitting there, and the guy in the front row would look at him and be like, yo, man, that's clearly not the word. It's clearly not the words. And he'd be like, we built this
like that.
city.
Yeah.
They just kept doing it over and over again. And they would cause fistfights constantly doing this. So that would be my favorite one.
You ran with a good gang, man.
One of them now is a lawyer, and I don't know if he's better or worse than Lionel Hutz from The Simpsons. Okay, so that's my favorite character. Do we have any more? I think that's it, right? We got one more? No, we're done. All right. With that out of the way, want to thank Toyo Tires, a wonderful sponsor of this program. Thank you guys so much. By the way, Ariel is in Detroit. Esther and Casey are in Detroit. Alexander Lee
Making his
is in
debut.
Detroit. I think he's going to make one of his preview show debuts. Maybe we'll see how that goes. So don't go anywhere. Tons of coverage for UFC 218 coming your way. Lots of stuff, of course, with Ultimate Fighter 26 and even Bellator as well. We've got it locked. Give this video a like. Subscribe to MMA Fighting. Thank you guys so much for watching. For Ariel in absentia, there is Chuck, Danny, Jeff. I am Luke. Until next time, hands up, chin down, let them fly. This is the MMA Beat.